Today on the EOR podcast.
We blame the salespeople for not hitting their targets, but really we didn't lead them properly.
Leaders needed to take care of themselves to be able to take care of others.
Yes, most things in life aren't rocket science. If you show up and you do the work, you will be successful.
Wow. I'm putting that on a billboard in the EOR office.
People are unfair when they beat them over the head when they don't hit the target.
You are going to burn people out because you are just constantly looking at a scoreboard.
Yes, and if you, and the scoreboards are often a joke. Hit your target. No. Hit your first meetings.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Effort Over Results podcast. I'm your host, Quinn Magnuson. Today's conversation is a real privilege for me. Kevin Lawrence isn't just another author on my bookshelf. He's one whose work I have actively used as a tool inside CEO leadership forums, recommended in real-time coaching conversations, and referenced on this podcast more than once. Kevin's book, Your Oxygen Mask First, was published back in 2017 and has become a staple for leaders who are good at producing results, but struggle to sustain themselves through that journey. Kevin didn't stop there. He's just released his latest work, The Four Forces of Growth, which takes decades of experience helping CEOs grow companies and distill the unseen dynamics that really drive or stall organizational growth. Today, we're going to talk about the evolution of Kevin's thinking, the patterns he sees in leadership longevity, and how his tools help leaders stay in the game longer, more intentionally, and with more clarity. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Wow, that was a great introduction. Well done. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Like I said before the show, this is a real honor for me, and largely because I have used your book, obviously, with the CEO forums that I run, and I think anybody who's read the book knows that it's very straightforward, and it's very applicable in all aspects of being a leader. And I would suggest that a lot of those tenets, the 17 principles in the book, are applicable in a lot of stages of life, not just as a leader of a business. But the first question, let's start with what matters here, and you're going to get a good chuckle of this. My first question for you is, how good are you, Kevin, at enjoying life in tandem with your achievements in business?
I'm really good. I'm really good to the point where I don't like to talk publicly too much about how good it can be sometimes. And I'm not like, there was a price I paid. I ended up, getting divorced from my first wife, and that was hard, very, very hard. So I've had to learn some of the hard things along the way. But the way my partner and I, we live our life now, we take a whole bunch of time off. We generally at least 10, 12 weeks a year. And we have time with our kids. We have time with our friends and our family, time ourselves. Like I've been like this my whole life. I've been pretty good at living life. The challenge for me is I burnt myself out so many times in the past, hence the catalyst for the book. So I'm really good at burning myself out. Today I can catch it. I can see it coming and I can catch it before I burn now, which is great. So yeah, I live a great life. I love it. And I know how to manage my burnout better too. So I've figured a couple things out. I've still got lots more to learn.
Excellent. Well, the book certainly does teach leaders how to deal with burnout and how to avoid it, or at least if they have gone through it, how to get back from that. So when you decided to write Your Oxygen Mask First, and by the way, folks, the title is basically a metaphor for when you're in an airplane and the plane's going down and the oxygen mask drops, you're supposed to put yours on first before helping others. So that's the metaphor here, and we'll get into the details of that in a second. But when you wrote that book, Kevin, what real problem were you trying to solve for leaders?
Well, I just finished writing another book, or a book I did a huge amount of the work on, which is a book called Scaling Up. I just finished that, which was all about business. And I got burnt out from that project, and I was coming back and just thinking about, I wanted to do something about the growth of the individuals. And as I dug into it, the pattern I'd seen again and again and again is the first 10 years of my career, it was all burnt out CEOs coming to me. Their business wasn't growing, they weren't liking it, and they were trying to figure out what to do. So I kind of went back to the beginning of how I got started in this work and wanted just to put together kind of a simple field guide to help the individuals versus just helping the business. And the thing I'll add, and I saw so much burnout I call it the dark secret of the boardroom. I saw so much burnout in the boardrooms that nobody wanted to talk about. Like I was seeing it consistently everywhere.
When you talk about burnout, because in 15 years at my previous job in advising businesses and working with leaders, that term has become it's ubiquitous. It's
Yeah,
been used
it
so
has.
much that it almost becomes just an easy label to throw onto things. I
Oh,
want you
it's like for being tired almost. It's not
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
I'm
just being
talking
tired.
technically burnt out.
Okay, define that for us. What is your idea of burnout, and define that for us in your words?
Yeah. So I've got words, and then the model we use, which is in the book, is called the mental health continuum. And the real secret to all of this is it happens to everybody. Everybody gets burnt out at some point, but basically it means that your system is drained. Imagine if you were a battery powered car. Imagine a Tesla. It's like you only ever get up to 30% full charged. Like you never get back up to the 100% because your system has a load on it. And generally, there's accumulation of a whole bunch of stress and your system is short circuiting. So people will observe things like different patterns of not being able to sleep like they used to. Cognitively, they slow down. Like people get dumb. Like I've had a whole bunch of our clients that would be, 9 out of 10 intelligence, and they're working with 4 out of 10. Like literally, the cognition decreases, their patience decreases. Their focus is not near as good. Their memory goes. Aches, pains, sickness, don't want to get out of bed, can't sleep at all or sleep too much. And generally, your coping mechanisms, they fire up. So, whatever, like during COVID, I got quite stressed and I drank the most red wine I've ever drank in my life during COVID. And two, I probably ordered the most Amazon. You can watch my stress level by the amount of Amazon packages showing up at my
Yeah,
house or things I buy. I buy
yeah.
stuff when I'm stressed. So, what happens is the addictions or the coping mechanisms kick in and start to get out of control. And I'll give you an example.
Mhm.
So during COVID, a leader I've worked with for 20 years, awesome guy, wicked smart, hardworking, takes lots of time off for himself. He's got it working well, but he called me freaking out because he was down to about 5 out of 10 intelligence. He couldn't think straight. He couldn't sleep. And he's a two martini a day kind of guy. He's always been 2 martinis a day. He goes, Kevin, I'm up to 8 and I still can't calm my brain down. It's like it's not just tired and exhausted. Your brain is just melting down and your system just can't hold a charge. And that's why you need help with a psychologist or a counselor to help unravel it. So that's what I mean by burnout.
And this is the reason why in the president's roundtables that I ran, why I used your book, because I'm a huge believer in mental acuity, physical fitness, and to a certain extent, spiritual, growth too. And this is
Yes.
what I was trying to profess to my leaders is that the conversations we had in that forum, Kevin, were not about business for the most part. A lot of it was about the challenges they faced, how they were feeling on a day-to-day basis, the fact that they barely have any time to spend with their kids, and families and things like that. And so the program that we ran really revolved around being a whole person and putting your oxygen mask on first. So when I first used that, though, in my CEO forums, there was a few people in the group that kind of heard things like
Yeah.
self-care. They think it's soft, kind of woo-woo kumbaya bullshit, right? So is that a common misconception that leaders have when they first encounter your book?
Well, that's why I talk about it and I share stories of CEOs and executives who have almost died from it and real stories that people. So yes, because here's what it is. Here's the story in our culture. Oh, mental health and this stuff, that's for the weak, right? And there's all kinds of labels we attach to those people. But that's the story. But here's what I know. It's the most badass, driven, successful people who burn out the most. After I published the book, the thing that I noticed is that the people who were coming and saying, "Oh gosh, Kevin, I'm glad you did that. We got to talk about this." Executives I knew, the people who had the worst stories of burnout and needing it the most were the A plus achievers.
Yeah.
Like because they run hot and they push hard. They're like a race car. They're on the red line all the time, maxing. So yeah, it's fascinating. But it's yes, everyone thinks it's like because there's too much in the world of the spiritual. Like oh, let's contemplate and let's meditate and let's have gratitude. By the way, all those things are really,
Yeah.
but it doesn't match the masculine. We're tough and we can do this and we can push through. And by the way, the most successful super masculine men and women or driven men and women that we work with that are high achievers, they practice gratitude. They meditate and they have spiritual practices. Otherwise, they fall apart.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. it doesn't match the story of society, and the story in society is a lie. And that's why I
Yeah.
talk about this stuff openly.
Tell me if this resonates with you and if I'm touching a nerve here, because I believe that a lot of what you espouse in the book about how leaders are supposed to take care of themselves, we just talked about, it being a soft
Yep.
approach. I think the leaders of companies that experience the worst burnout and are the worst, let's say, violators of this are the true founder leaders. The ones that started these businesses off the back of their truck
Yep.
from, a dollar and a hope, things like that, because this is their child they're talking about, right? The business is their child, and they don't want to let go of that control. And two of the tenets, the 17 principles in the book, and I want to pull up two. The two that I love the most, actually, Kevin. One, make yourself useless. Very hard for a founder to do. True
Yes.
entrepreneurs understand the value of that. Founders struggle with it. And the second one is stop being chief problem solver. And
Yep.
I equate this to being a dad or a father. And no offense to
Yep.
moms out there, but dads are the fix it guys, right? As soon as something
Totally.
goes wrong, don't want to see my kids cry, don't want to see things wrong, let's fix it right now, right? And that's what founder business owners do. They think they need to be part of every decision, every fix it, everything that comes up
Yep.
in the
The
company
founder,
right
I'd say
down.
the founders that don't scale.
Yeah,
Like there's
right.
founders that tap out, and then there's founders, the founders that tap out and can't scale. You're describing, yes, 100%.
Yes. Yeah, and they're the ones, like I said, are the greatest violators. So let me ask you about this. How do you get them to change that? Because that is very much a leopard and spots situation where you have excuse me, a founder
Mm.
who is very controlling, doesn't like to delegate too much, still micromanages to a certain point. How do you get them to, for lack of a better term, Kevin, see the light?
Yeah, and I would just add to that, but we see that in founders in smaller companies, but in bigger companies, we do see it in executives, the identical behaviors. And that is more of a take control, own it, and take the ball to the end zone kind of guy, right?
Mhm.
And it's sometimes, and they're not the people that should take the ball to the end zone, but they are doing it and they shouldn't be. Somebody else should. That's what's happening. And so when we see it in companies, it is very common. I believe it's just a growth opportunity. Like
Well,
as you as you grow up and learn leadership, there's multiple leaders to being a leader. Say there's seven levels for simpleton terms. Founders can get stuck at lower levels because they can get away with it, and they've generally haven't hired big boy and big girl executives. When you hire real executives, they won't put up with that crap. I've got my team is mostly ex-CEOs and ex-senior executives of $100 million plus companies. I can't do that stupid stuff that founders do. They won't allow it. They won't work for that because they've worked for excellent leadership, and I need to be the same. But if you're a founder of a small business and you've hired people that have grown with you, you don't have to grow and people get stuck. So it happens a lot. So what we do, and you know, stop being chief problem solver is one of my favorite ones. Like I really, really still love that piece of that book. Is that we get them focused on what they need to do and who they need to be to lead amazing leaders. So the chapter opens that up a little bit, but I believe most people can grow through it. Most people can, but we have to do some serious work on unraveling it like one piece at a time.
yeah, I agree. It's not an overnight fix. Absolutely.
Uh-uh.
That's something that takes a lot of time. There's an evolution there. And and getting back to my founders comment, I also think the founders that are the visionaries, the ones that really don't necessarily have the business acumen, but they're visionaries. Like they have these
Yep.
beautiful ideas for the business. I actually was a franchise owner for 1-800 Got Junk at one point in my life. And if you know Brian Scudamore, which I'm
Yep.
sure you
Yep.
do, out on the
Yep.
West Coast, there was a guy who was a visionary, true entrepreneur, true visionary. And at some point, he realized I can't carry the ball to the end zone anymore. And he hired Cameron Harold, who
Yep.
ended up taking the company to $100 million. And love both those men. Very heavily influenced my life
Yep.
as not only a
Great guys.
franchise owner and as a business leader. So great example there. I want to switch to this. So Kevin, on the podcast, we talk about valuing effort, not just outcomes. And a lot of leaders are great at effort till they burn out, right? So how do you help these leaders distinguish between what is healthy long game effort and the kind of effort like the guys who just want to put out fires every day that really becomes self-damaging? How do you get them to distinguish that?
Mhm. That's a great one. I mean, I'm about outcomes.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, what's the outcome we want? Our firm is very much about, let's get clear on the outcomes we want and drive to it, and then people can figure out the way. Well, it's interesting, it's a lot of reason why I wrote The Four Forces of Growth, the other book, because in companies, people work incredibly hard on the wrong things. And people use strategic planning methodologies like in the Scaling Up, the book I wrote a big chunk of, or EOS or other framework. People use these frameworks and they check all the boxes and they do all the work and they do all the things, but nothing happens. They don't get growth. And so that's why we really get our organizations that we work with them every single quarter, every month and every quarter, pegged on what are the outcomes we are driving to, the two or three that matter most. In the book, I call it the three big moves, two or three big outcomes. And then how do we drive towards that and stay obsessed with the things that drive growth and not just rearranging the deck chairs on a Titanic? And if as companies grow and it gets bigger, all good executives and managers, they get caught up in solving problems as they should.
Mm.
But if you aren't constantly focused on the outcomes of growth, you're going to end up with a beautiful business that's stuck and doesn't grow. Even businesses hit 300 and 500 million, they're all at risk of tapering on growth because all the energy gets absorbed down to fixing problems versus driving growth. And so we get clear on the growth outcomes first, both for the CEO themselves and the growth outcomes for the business. And then we just keep driving towards those and ignore most of the noise in the middle.
Yeah. And something I want to clarify for my audience, because obviously this podcast and my company and the way the coaching philosophy is effort over results. What I don't want people to think that it's just put in the effort and the results will happen, and that we're ignoring results. We certainly want KPIs, metrics. We want things to head towards. We want an end
Yes.
zone to head towards. However, it's the appropriate efforts. What are the inputs that will get you towards that? And then
Yes.
be consistent in that and recognize those efforts, right, Kevin?
100%. Those are the key things that you need to do. But I find you got to put the work in, and you got to, like, again, we
Yeah.
set, clear quarter goals. You got to grind on that body of work that's going to get you the result. And you got to work hard. And in many ways, we call it trusting the process, which is the same idea. If you consistently set goals as a team and review them every month or review them every week, touch base on them monthly and reset them every quarter, you're going to continue to iterate and get better and better and better. Like that work will get you there. You can't just set a goal and then hope. You have to. So to what you're saying.
Yeah,
And
it's
there's
like
the other
saying, "I'm
side.
gonna." Yeah, go ahead.
No, but the other side of it is people work really, really hard and put all kinds of effort in and don't get the results when they have the wrong strategy and they're pointed
Yeah,
at the wrong thing. That's a separate piece, which is different ways of saying the same thing.
exactly. It's to simplify it, it's like saying, "I wanna lose weight," but you don't really change anything other than, "Okay, I'm gonna miss breakfast." Like, you're putting in some
Good luck.
effort, but yeah, exactly, good luck on that one. The book is coming up on being 10 years old. Next year, I think it'll be 10 years old.
Yep.
What has surprised you most about how leaders have adopted or even resisted the 17 principles? People you've worked with, maybe people who have pushed
Hmm.
back on them. What have you seen over a decade?
It's a great question.
Has anyone really pushed back hard on some of them?
No.
Yeah,
Thing is, it's all wisdom because it's the result of 20 years of coaching CEOs and
yeah,
being in the boardroom. This is not theory.
yeah,
It's the stuff I saw. I mean, as people, I'm saying, people, I'm going through the different principles. Is there anything that people have pushed back on?
yeah,
Not to my face. I'm sure people have opinions, but like it's just simple wisdom that
yeah,
it's just simple. I have it like the thing that surprised me, I shared earlier, the fact of how it was the highest performers who came and shared, and the amount of them that had been on the verge of suicide. That is the other
yeah,
piece that is scary that no one
yeah,
talked about. I'll tell you one thing I'm really grateful for is that in writing that book and publishing it, it got me so comfortable with the mental health piece. What surprised me, I've talked so much more about the mental health than I thought I would. That became the core piece, especially during COVID, because people's mental health was a mess. But the number of times since I've had conversations with people and I've been able to ask them, say, "Hey, did you ever have any thoughts of hurting yourself or something or suicide?" And the amount of yeses I've heard surprised the hell out of me.
yeah,
Like this, this stuff is people say, "Oh, it's just business, nobody dies." Yeah, but people really care. Like one of the stories, and there's this guy Michael, and It's since the book, and it's on my website. You can watch it. He agreed for me to do a full transparent interview with him about his experience. Long story short, he was going to lose his business after 17 years, and he had family money put into the business. He had his wife's family's money put into the business, and he was going to lose it all, which is devastating for any of us, right? The thing that was surprising, he was in a really great church community. He was in a CEO, and he was in the men's group in a church community. He was in a CEO forum, but nobody ever asked him how he was doing. He called me. He told me the story. I mean, and because I'm very comfortable with these conversations, I'm like, "Hey, man, I got it. Obviously, your business is a mess. We'll do what we can do, but it sounds like a bad spot." But I said, "How are you doing?" He's like, I said, "No. How are you really doing? Are you having thoughts of hurting yourself?" And he's like, yep.
Yeah.
But nobody asked. And what he said, which was fascinating, is he almost has a European heritage, and he has the stiff upper lip kind of thing. Like, and he said, I just always looked like I had it together. I didn't ask for help. So people assumed, like it happens with lots of us in leadership positions, people assumed he's fine. He's dying inside. He almost died, right? Like he attempted killing himself.
Mm.
And the reality is that these people are around us every day. But in your mind, when you listen to someone's story and you do the math in your head, you're like, I would feel like a piece of garbage and want to crawl under the rock. Well, that's probably how they feel. And if it goes too far with too much pressure on the brain, suicide's their next option, which is brutal because they don't think they'll ever recover. So those stories, the book wasn't as much about the mental health, it was a piece. It ended up becoming one of the most important parts of the damn thing. And I use it every week at this point, probably. And at the end of the day, the reality, and by the way, if someone's experiencing that, your job is to get someone to help you and get you to your family doctor, get you to a psychologist or a counselor. They can always help you out. And people are so willing to help. By the way, companies have free benefits. There's, I think it's 988. You can text, and there's mental health hotlines in Canada, US. Like there's an abundant support, but there's such a stigma around this where people think that's only for the weak, not tough guys like us. That's the part that I surprised me and continues to be very, very powerful and I guess meaningful for me in this. Like, that piece alone is, and that doesn't have there's no business benefit to us. It's just a human benefit to like know this stuff and help people when they get in trouble. And it was a long answer, but I get fired up when
Mm.
I talk about this because it's meaningful. Like it's like this is
Absolutely,
people's
Kevin.
lives, and we've lost people unfortunately in companies. That really sucks. It's horrible.
You have really touched a nerve positively for me because I know that in the two CEO forums that I ran, there were definitely people in that group that were feeling the way you just described. And I don't think that people who are not business owners or have been in that seat
Can get it.
understand how freaking hard it is on you mentally, not just physically, because it's sort of an unwritten rule when you become the leader, the president, the CEO, the person who's basically making all the decisions, you're at the top, whether you're founder or not, is that you have to constantly make it look like you're working so that everyone around you thinks you're working hard because you're the leader, you're in the big chair,
Totally,
right?
totally.
It's taking genuine time alone for yourself to re-energize, to rejuvenate, so you can be better for those people at
Yep.
work. I'm gonna let you roll on that because that's exactly what I
Yeah,
told him. I said, "You need to be better for yourself to be better for them." And that's not only as a business leader, that's as a father, that's as a coach, that's as
for
a
sure.
teacher, that's as a parent, right?
Yeah, that's true, but unfortunately, most really, really successful people have an internal motor, and if it's not torquing up against something hard, they don't know how to handle it. Which is, by the way, I'm Exhibit A right here. So, right. So imagine a high-powered diesel motor in a truck sitting there just idling in a parking lot. No, those diesel motors, when they're torqued up and loaded up, that's what they're meant to do. Or like a plow horse, it's meant to plow. A racehorse is meant to run. So highly successful people have that. And there's this part of them, and there's a whole other psychological framework that we do some work with. Um, that there's a whole part of them that like if they're not doing that, it's yelling at them, "Hey loser, hey idiot, you're gonna fail. This is wrong. This is like it's like they're driving the wrong way in traffic." It's like cannot compute. And if you look at people like myself in my first 20 years of my career, I worked like a madman, traveled like a madman. By the way, it works to get great results. And there is different ways to do it. I've got a lot of young people that I know that are trying to like be wildly successful working part-time. I don't know. Good luck to you. I've never seen it. I mean, there might be a rare one, but it's so basically, but they have a part of them that is driving the heck out of it. It almost violates their values and their belief system, and they can't handle it. And I'm way better at it than I used to be, but for 20 years, uh-uh.
Yeah.
And so in future, that voice, what happens, so as as men and women build great companies, and I got one of my clients right now. Look, they're in the tens of millions of profit, right? They're doing more than fine. They make enough in a year to last for a few generations, right? So they're fine. But the motor hasn't can't stop.
Yeah.
The motor can't stop. So I've got at least two of our clients right now that I'm talking to. I've talked to them both this week, where we're working on what I believe is that at a certain level of achievement, that motor's paid off, right? Now your relationships are normally highly strained. You got buckets of cash, but then you realize it's all a sham. Because it's like, I'm making more money than anyone on the world probably does, but I don't feel any better than I did when I was scraping by. And then they got to start doing the personal work. And then we start doing the contemplative work, the what really matters work, and getting them into therapy to unravel what drives them so hard for stuff that doesn't matter. Now, we still keep building the business because that's fun. But at some point, people have to start doing the personal work and the spiritual work. Otherwise, you're rich and miserable. Which, by the way, many people are. And I don't want to be poor and happy, to be clear. Poor and happy doesn't sound like fun. Rich and miserable ain't fun. And that's why for me, it's about building an amazing company and enduring wealth. Great. And love your life and have the fulfillment and the relationships that you want. But people have to get to a certain level of achievement before they're ready for that. Guys like me anyways, and probably like you, or you may, based on the look on your face, you might relate to that.
Yeah. I was just about to say, Kevin, that with my athletic background and having played professional football, like I understand the importance of physical health.
Yes.
And so my question to you is, because part of the EOR program, our coaching program, is that I try to impress upon, we don't actually force them into the gym or into personal trainers and whatever, but we certainly highly recommend it, to
Sure.
take that time and to get that help. And but what do you tell that leader that says, and you know what questions coming and what comments coming, right, Kevin, is, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
What do you tell them when you know it's important? And anytime somebody
I
says
tell
to
them
me,
it's
"I don't have
bullshit.
time,"
I tell
well, it's
it doesn't
bullshit
mean
because
it means
not a priority then.
no, it is not a priority. So
Yeah,
here's what I tell them. I have two things.
yeah,
One, I've got a guy. I'll give a shout out to a guy, a great CEO, founder CEO, Mark Lepke in Saskatoon.
right.
He's built a whole auto group called Fun. They got a
Yeah,
whole bunch of car dealerships. Wicked guy. I love the guy. He's awesome. But one of the things he talks about is, like what are the habits you would have when you get to where you want to be, right? So some people want to get to 100 million in revenue or a billion in revenue or five, whatever their number is. But when you imagine you've achieved what you achieve, how are you going to live your life?
mm,
What are you going to do? Well, do that today. That's probably a path to get there, i.e., having a personal trainer, taking care of your health. And you can't wait till you're 80 and start working on your health. So it doesn't work. So that's one piece. But it's like have the habits today that you want to have when you've arrived. Secondly, is I talk about a client of mine I worked with in the Middle East. He had 12,000 employees, 50 companies, 50. I worked with him for 13 years. It was an amazing, amazing experience. Awesome guy. But I looked at him, and by the way, one day he got given a government job, which he did full time while running his empire. He was probably the busiest man I've ever. If people say they're busy, I laugh. Like he was probably the busiest and had massive impact, and it was a great, great, amazing person. But what I saw with him is one of the things is a learning is a big piece. So exercise. I mean, 90% of the executives and CEOs that we work with have a fitness component of their master plan. Our
yep,
master plan is work, self, and life.
right,
Everyone's got that because all the 90 something percent of the high performers I know have a strong something around fitness, activity, nutrition. There's 10% that don't, but that might cost them in the future. But that's not but that's them. But also is learning. People say, I don't have time for learning. Well, you got to learn because you don't know enough. You always got to learn. So this guy who was as busy as it could be, every quarter I would take him a different book and I'd bring it for all the CEOs of his companies and give them a book to read. He would read every single one without fail. He's the busiest person I have probably ever met because he basically had two full-time jobs. He read every single book every single time. And so I listen to these people and it's just like, okay, so what do you want to work on then? Like really? Or when are you gonna tell me when you're ready? Because this is just it's a bad excuse.
Have you ever been hired or at least tried to be hired by someone and then you kind of got into those first conversations with them and you went, "You don't need me. Like you're doing everything right." Like, has that ever happened?
Well, I
Not
don't
that you're
think I
trying to
did. Look
turn
at
money away, but
well, look
I'm
at
just
we
saying,
screen people.
but
Yeah,
it,
we
but
screen people. I talked to a
yeah,
CEO today that wanted some help. I'm like, it sounds like you're doing things really, really well. I said to him, why do you need us? He's no, no, no. We want to get to a higher level of performance. We're doing the motions. We're not getting the results. Okay. Well, then we can talk about that. Look, we work. It was interesting. Go back to professional football. Like you can be doing everything right in practice and in games. So does that mean you don't need coaches anymore? No. You take a great team of athletes and you stop having a coach run the practices every day. What's going to happen to those practices? I know I didn't play football like you. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure the practices are going to start stuck.
patience
Someone's
for
got to
running these
lead.
live.
Exactly. Someone's got to lead it and hold tension. So what we find for a lot of our long-term CEOs, and we got, we had dinner the night for a client we worked with for 24 years, right? And we have lots of long-term clients. For those clients, part of the value prop is that we keep creating tension to a higher level of performance for them individually and their org. So, yeah, they're doing lots of things well, but there's always work to be done. Some people want to continue to grow. They have that growth mindset. And some are just want to cruise. So I'm not sure if that's answering your question, but and we graduate people. We've said I will tell you one client that I know I had to quote I call graduate. He's like he wasn't doing the work. Like it was really clear what had to be done. I remember I said to him, "Look, hey, I really like him. I like your business. You're not going to get any results. You're not going to grow because you're not making the tough calls. And so you're wasting your money having us show up." But I'm a believe in lifelong learning and lifelong growth. So as long as you want to play a game, like we had one of our clients, he was in Vancouver. His name was Larry Fisher, great guy. He made it to 83. He was skiing more than 40 days a year at Whistler at 83. He was amazing, great entrepreneur, amazing in his community, great, great guy. But he would always come in and make sure we had fun. He'd always make sure we had a good fight or good debate in our meetings. But he kept always, even until he left the planet, he was pushing for better and wanting to be better himself and his team. That's the kind of people we love working with. It's fun.
And I think those are the type of leaders, yeah, like people like working for as well.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, it's sort of a weird dichotomy, Kevin, because it feels like, yes, I want the person who's leading me, whether it be a coach, a teacher, or a business owner who's my employer. I want to see them working hard because I think example is being set. But at the
Yes.
same time, I also want to see them finding a way to take care of themselves as an example as well.
Yes.
Because I think that example is being set. And once again,
Both.
it's not spa days and golf days with your buddies every, Thursday and Friday. It's just showing people what work-life balance looks like. And I think you
It's
even talked
showing
about
people what living a life well is,
exactly.
right? And so role modeling and everything. Again, like Larry was notorious for 6 or 6:30 a.m. meetings. Larry was notorious for 3-minute phone calls. But, like, he would always make time. But he took care of himself. Like, it's hard working 'cause at the end of the day, hard work works, right? Hard working and enjoying your life. People that only enjoy their life, I don't know, they're not a lot of fun for me. People that only work hard, oh, they're not a lot of fun for me. It's the people that can do both that I've always wanted to be. That's who I've always aspired to be, and
Yeah.
I think it's great role modeling.
Yeah. I think it's the best example to be set. It's like, man, that person works like tirelessly, but yet they still find time to have fun. And it's like, that's the life I want, right? And I
Yes.
think that's the best example. Let's transition. Obviously, we see all your books behind, but let's talk about the newly released Four Forces of Growth, which reframes how organizations grow, and it uses the metaphor of flight, lift, thrust, weight, drag,
Yep.
connects them to opportunities, courage, problems, and fear. So for someone who loves strategy and performance, what was the spark for that book?
Part of what I shared earlier, I would
You
see
love your
so many.
metaphors, by the way. You
I
just love
do. I
metaphors.
love
Yeah.
metaphors. I do. Well, because they work, right? It's easy
Absolutely.
to understand. The best communication is so simple and foundational. Wisdom is very simple and very foundational, and it's really hard. So even by the way, when we're writing the book, Curtis, my COO, reminded me today. We wrote it till we edited it and worked it till it got so simple. we almost thought it didn't deserve to be a book. And they were like, boom, nailed it.
Yeah.
That's math, and that's hard. Like, you would not believe how hard it took to make that book so simple. It was insane, and it's also hard for me. But the idea was is that I would watch and look at. I worked with CEOs for 10 years, and then I worked on implementing scaling up and management systems in companies for probably it was about 15 years. And in that time, I would consistently see some people would really grow, and some wouldn't, and people would have beautiful strategic plans, but they wouldn't get any results. And so as I started to look at it, and I saw it with a lot of prospects because our clients generally had a pretty good track record. It's even better now because we leverage the book and the principles that we learned. But I would see when we get prospects showing us their strategy plans, it was full of all kinds of operational enhancements, but there was nothing about growing the damn business.
Mm.
And I had one CEO that, he had hired about 14 additional people on the team to drive growth, and he wasn't getting any growth. They were just improving systems and products and all kinds of stuff. So what I've noticed is some of my clients growed really well, some didn't. When we see prospects that weren't growing, it was so obvious on the outside. Why? Because their plans were wrong. They were enhancement plans or improvement plans. There was no growth in the damn plans. And so one of the CEOs in the beginning of the book, BP, Brent Parent, amazing growth CEO, amazing. And he had a two circle model, which is in the opening of the book. But basically, in essence, we were in one of his strategy meetings when I first started working with him and his team, and we've done some spectacular work together. And one of his guys started talking about a problem, and he goes, "Hey, Tommy, are you in the big circle or the little circle?" And Tommy puts his head down, like, "Oh, BP, you got me." And he goes, "Tommy, go give us a lesson. Big circle, little circle." So Tommy draws a big circle and a little circle, and BP is like, "Tommy, how much of our time do we spend in the big circle?" Tommy goes, 95%. Okay, great, 95. Little circle 5. And he goes, "Tommy, what's in the big circle?" Tommy's like, "It's opportunities, BP." And BP is like, "Okay, what's an opportunity?" He goes, "It's selling something to a customer, adding a product, adding a service, adding a new customer, adding a new territory. It drives the growth of the business because we're doing stuff for the customer." Great. That's opportunities. That's where we need to focus. What's in the little circle? He goes, "Problems." And then BP, this brilliant CEO, is like, "Hey guys, anytime you want to deal with those problems, just come to my office between 8 and 8:30 any morning." And then he smiles. "I'm in at 9." He's like, he's like, "I'm not here for problems. That's your job. But if you want to sell something to a customer or expand a customer or land a new customer, call me 24/7." So what I saw, and then when I heard that started working with BP, this spectacular CEO, I'm like, "Oh, this is why people need." And by the way, the growth that he creates in his companies is mind blowing in industrial businesses, not tech, industrial old school businesses. So it's the focus on opportunities and growing clients and growing impact and growing value versus rearranging a deck chair. So those two things combined with a bunch of other great CEOs is kind of where it came from.
In your years, in the work you do, Kevin, is there one industry that always tends to frustrate you? Like, I've worked in multiple industries with business owners, and I'm not gonna pin the tail on the donkey on this one. I'll let you do it. But are there any industries that where the leaders are especially challenging? Let's put it that way. Put you on the
That's a
spot.
great question. They're all challenging.
Well, not the
I
industry, but I mean the leaders, because
I know the
I mean it's
people. No,
kind
I
of
know.
yeah,
Like the brand. I like every industry has its sort of personalities, right?
sure,
It's like real estate developers are often more kind of cowboy or cowboyish.
yeah,
Car guys are kind of, more sales-ish. Engineers are more process-ish. They have
oof,
things. Yeah, it's different. And we've worked with large companies in almost every industry. Here's what I would say is we attract a certain type of client. And so it's not maybe an accurate representation of the whole market. We are generally more likely to be purpose led, believe in growing and developing people, and seeing things for the long term. Like most of our clients leverage the principles and research of Jim Collins, and like actually we're taking another group of 20 CEOs, magical thing to spend 2 days with him in his lab in Boulder. So we take people on a field trip to spend 2 days with him every year. So there are more people who want to be, Collins' core principles of enduring great companies is generally those purpose-led CEOs that we attract. And I think they're a little different than the typical ones. The non-purpose ones that don't really care, we don't work with them. That's the personality piece. But I've seen amazing purpose-led CEOs in almost every industry. I'd be curious to hear you got me thinking about yours. Is there a particular industry? I know you don't want to say it, and that's okay.
Well,
But
you know what? It's a love-hate relationship for me in that I really love working with blue collar industry, so construction
yep,
adjacent, anything
yep,
where literally these people worked off the backs of their trucks at the age of
yep,
18, maybe didn't even finish high school, and now they're running 100 million plus, companies in construction.
yep.
And it boggles my mind how they got from there to here, one, but two, it's they're the biggest alpha types, the ones that don't want to change, the founder that, doesn't like to delegate because it's their fingerprint on everything. And to me, that's frustrating because they do think things like you and I say is a bit soft. But I love that about them too, because I love the pride and I love the fact that they work their tails off.
They
And if
do.
you can get through to them, if you can get them to,
Yes,
and this is
that's
why coming from an
because
alpha
there's
background,
an
but yeah,
amazing, soft, caring person
yes, there
inside the
is.
hard shell, and I do see
Absolutely.
the same thing in construction
Yeah.
consistently. Like it's alpha, we kick butt to get things done, but you got the key is how do you get through? Because they're good people and they give a crap. They
Yeah.
do, but there's that industry in particular. There is this alpha. I got my boots on and I'm going to use them if I need to. And interestingly, we've seen people that aren't like that, and they'll fail in construction because it's a different operating system.
Yeah.
But I think the key is to be able to get I don't take on as many clients as I used to. My team does that because I'm full. But I have some tests that I would do on founder entrepreneurs like that up
Mm.
front to see if they were coachable. So I have a couple of tests I do. I take a run at them and I see what happens. And I see seriously.
Love
And
it.
if they start
Yep.
yeah, because you if you can't get that brotherhood type let's work and debating is fine, but if they're not open at all, you can't help them.
And that's another simple, tenet of really doing business and trying to coach somebody is that I can probably tell in the first half hour of talking to them if we can get anywhere with them.
Yep.
And like you said, you just go, you know what, this isn't a good fit. It's not going to work because you're too bullheaded, you're too stubborn. There's zero room for any vulnerability. And all right, good luck. Like you're doing well, and that's
Yep.
fine. But if you truly that's the one thing, Kevin, that I really have found in my time over the last 15 years, and now I'm what I'm doing with EOR, especially with EOR, because once again, it's kind of a soft approach. Is that the ones that you can't get to and get through are the ones that are burning out, like you said earlier, and the ones that just
Yep.
aren't. But I love finding that soft spot in them.
So
Yeah,
I have
it
studied
is.
psychology so much, I could probably have a double PhD in
Yeah, me
psychology,
too.
and you probably too.
Yeah,
I have learned now, by the way, our clients, people will get referred to us from other CEOs and they call us. So they're kind of self-selected by the time they get to us. So maybe not an accurate sample of the market, right? They're all referred and then they call because they want help. So that changes part of it. But I have made it my mission in life to be able to get through to any of them.
mhm,
Like I love, like it's like, how do I crack this one? And as I've got more comfortable talking about my own weaknesses and my own vulnerability and working on being less judgmental, all those things that made me successful in the first 20 years, I had to undo. I
yeah.
was a jerk early on. The more I'm comfortable and it's easier because they don't feel as threatened because they look at me like I got it all figured out. And that's not true. I don't. But I take it on as a challenge to try and crack them. But they're also referred from other great clients. So it comes with I might have an easy job too.
I think how do I would put this? An asshole that shows a little bit of vulnerability is someone
Yep.
who truly has growth to be had, no matter how big an a-hole
Yep.
they are.
Yep.
And that and the talk of vulnerability on LinkedIn and in business circles and even in my president roundtable forums, it's really what's helping people grow for the first time. And sorry, I'm not trying
Yes.
to keep this on one side of the gender track, but it's
No,
like
it's okay.
for hundreds
Well,
of
for men
years, men
and
have been.
men, male,
It
yeah,
is,
but
but
men
you're
have been
true.
taught.
Yeah.
You've been taught like you're the tough guy. You got
Yep.
the armor. You got the answer. All that
Don't
stuff.
cry, don't show any vulnerability,
Yep.
any of it. And it's finally what I love it is that when you do see what you perceive to be an alpha type male or female for that matter, but
Yep.
alpha type male show a little bit of that vulnerability in celebrities, in business, in sports, and whatever, it draws you to them just a little bit. It gives you a
Because
little bit
it's
of insight
safe.
to
It's
it's
safe,
right?
right? And that's
Psychologically
why for
safe
me,
space.
I've had to learn, which I learned from Oxygen Mask first. I've
Yeah.
had to learn to talk more about my mistakes and my weaknesses and my failures to make it easier for people to talk to me about stuff. Because I got the feedback, Kevin, it seems like you got it all together. And when I started to break that, it made it easier, which is, part of my own. I'm with you. But I will say, alpha, like the women and the men in the boardroom often have it all very similar because the women in the boardroom too, they're taught not to cry. It's almost it takes a lot of masculine energy to be in that boardroom. And I see even for the women to unravel and show vulnerability is just as hard.
In some cases, maybe even harder, and I'll tell you why. And this maybe I'm preaching to the choir, but for women to have escalated to and elevated themselves to that role of being a leader of a massive corporation, company, organization, what have you, they've had to probably piss some people off along the way. They've had to, maybe compromise themselves a little bit in
Yeah,
certain ways, and it's a nonstop trying to continue to prove themselves. I don't think men have to do that as much. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I
yeah,
don't think that even alpha males have to prove, because a lot of times that alpha male kind of fills in the
yeah,
gaps. But for a
exactly.
female leader, it's
It's
nonstop trying to
twice as
prove that they
hard in some
belong there.
cases. You
Absolutely.
got it. It is. The one thing I will say, and that's really important, I've learned in 30 something years of doing every alpha has insecurities. All of them are afraid of not being good enough and are not are of failing and not doing good enough and not achieving. And so when you're sitting around the boardroom tables with all of these people and you realize every single one of them has a 10-year-old little boy or girl in them who's probably freaking out at a few points in the meeting. You'll never see it. You'll never know it. And we're all the same. We're all just trying to do good. We don't want to disappoint people. We don't want to look bad. And people will put on a different package, but inside, it's all similar. And there's just people that have a higher desire, a more torqued up engine to need to win or want to win or achieve. But the inside, it's all the same. It just has different outside packaging.
Mhm, mhm. Agreed.
We're all human. We're all human trying to do our best. And some of us just are way more driven than others.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And whatever that background is that created that person it seems like it's a different story every time. I want to
Yes.
ask you this, and I'll give you a little bit of background on what we do here at Effort Over Results on the messaging
Hmm.
here, because I want to get your take on it.
Sure.
Once again, there's a misconception that when we talk about effort over results, people think that I'm trying to ignore goal setting, ignore results, ignore KPIs and metrics and so forth. And that's not the truth at all. In fact, the goal in the end is to achieve results. But what I have found, and we'll go back to our comments on burnout earlier, Kevin, is that when you're working in a company, so let's say you're not the leader, let's say you're just an employee, and um, I'll give you an example. So in sales, the messaging from your sales manager to you is, you didn't hit your targets this month, or you're 20% short on this,
Yep.
or you didn't do that, and it all is results, what I call results based messaging. It's all numbers and so forth, as opposed to the messaging that could be,
Oh, yeah.
we're a little bit short on our target this month, but let's talk about the fact that you've actually done 120 meetings this month. That's
Yeah, there we
awesome.
go.
That's effort messaging. And
I
where
just
I
wrote a
think,
blog about this yesterday. I wrote a blog about this and published it
there you
yesterday.
go. And
I
this is
called it
where I think leaders fail, is that they
it is. It's called
constantly, it's
I call it
result.
that doesn't work.
Help me.
You're talking inputs versus outputs. If
Yep.
you focus on inputs, you'll get the outputs.
Thank you.
You got to be clear on the output. It's so two things. You got me fired up here. So I call it in sales, I call it shovel and gravel. No surprise, a metaphor.
Yeah.
Sales ain't rocket science.
Yeah.
We look at the studies we've done on the highest performing sales reps. They generally have 10 meetings a week. The ones that aren't winning generally have closer to 5. Generally, but the data shows. So what I explain to people for sales is like, you got a pile of gravel in your driveway and it needs to get into the backyard. It's just shoveling. If you pick up a shovel, sooner or later, you're going to move the gravel. But if you don't shovel, it's still going to be there. And that's sales. Sales is about moving piles of gravel, which is prospects, from one spot to another, and then it works itself out. So, and when we focus on sales in a lot of our sales driven companies, it's like number of customer meetings or number of solutions presented to customers.
Yeah.
The revenue follows. But when you got the dumb sales manager who's just focusing on the revenue number, what use is that? So the blog that I wrote and went out yesterday is called Unintended Leadership. And I used customer satisfaction as the identical thing. So one of my team sent me a picture of this hotel that was trying to juice them to give them a higher customer satisfaction rating. So I called it Unintended Leadership. I bet you in that hotel chain, there was a brilliant conversation our guests aren't happy enough. So we need to improve the guest experience and make them happier. And someone's like, yeah, look at the data. The data says we're at 6 and we should be at 8. Yeah. Well, let's set the target to 8. So the intention started as a better guest experience and make people enjoy the hotel more. What happened is go get an 8 on your score became the messaging. And so the front lines are, instead of make the customer happier, which will lead to better satisfaction and guest retention, let's get an 8 to make management happy, and then you piss off the guests. So that, if that's what you're talking about, it's
Yeah.
so important. And in our work, we're trying to clarify the outputs that greatness equate to, but then manage the inputs that matter. And again, the customer service ones drive me crazy, or the sales ones. Hit your target. No, 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 no. Hit your first meetings. Hit your proposal quality. Like,
Yeah.
add value to the customer, the revenue will follow.
Yeah.
So yes, sorry, you get me fired up here, Quinn,
No,
but this
that's
is
awesome, man. I love it when my guests get fired up. It's basically what it amounts to is this: is that when you are a manager, a leader, and you have a group of people you're trying to improve and grow and put them in a position to succeed. Yes, we can talk about the targets, fine, but I'd say it's kind
fine.
of it's an 80-20 rule. 20% talk about, but let's talk about the amount of work that person put in, because as a human being, the psychologically safe space that I want to walk into each day is
Yep.
not immediately you didn't hit your targets. What about your numbers? What are the
Nope.
sales at and so forth? And
Inputs,
this isn't
inputs,
just
inputs.
sales. This goes across all departments, right? It needs to be about, let's look at the efforts that you're putting in. Are these really of value? Are they helping you succeed at your job to get towards those targets? And this is
Yep.
this is, I'll be honest with you, Kevin, this is what's killing Gen Z and why they're walking out of a lot of workplaces. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some Gen Zs out there that are just not
Sure.
handling things well, but for the most part, the boomer owners, the Gen X owners are failing Gen Z because Gen Z wants to know, how do what is my role in this? Stop talking about only just results, and can you at least recognize the work I put in today or
You
this
got it.
week or this month, and create that safe space where they feel like when they walk into work, it's not constantly being judged.
You
And
got
it's
it.
like, and
But that's just good
this has
leadership
been
and good.
absolutely is, and this isn't anything new. EOR isn't anything new. What
No, but
you
I like it.
profess
I
and
love it.
yeah, and this is the new leadership, and this is what I try to express to my CEOs. They
Yep.
kind of roll their eyes and go, "It's just some soft bullshit." It's like, listen, you aren't going to keep any people. You're going to have heavy turnover. You are going to burn people out, and you yourself are going to get burnt out because you are just constantly looking at a fucking scoreboard. Sorry.
Yes, and if you and the scoreboards are often a joke. So if you take improving the strategy, which we put a ton of energy into, and then making sure that the inputs or the effort aligns to that, then you got a double win. Because if the inputs are being measured but they don't align to the macro strategy or they don't work, then that's also a waste. So my Heidi, my partner, her daughter Kendra, is in sales in an organization. And so when I talk to her, I'm like, look, most of your people aren't going to hit their targets. All you got to do is make sure you book the number of meetings you need. And if you consistently hit the number of meetings, you will win. Shockingly, she's one of the top performing people in her team
Yeah.
because she's just making sure she does that. The rest takes care of itself. The promotions take care of themselves in time. And I had a great sales manager named Warren Morgan early in my career when I was in sales in media sales in Vancouver. And I remember I'm 5 months in and I haven't closed a damn thing. And this was like cold calling sales, right? Knocking on doors, dialing phones. And he just kept saying, Kevin, just keep making your 60 dials a day. Follow up with the ones from yesterday. Get 5 or 10 meetings a week. I think it was 10, he was saying, 10 meetings a week. Just keep doing the work. You'll be fine. And I'm
Yeah.
like at month 4, like, buddy, I haven't closed anything. I'm failing. Kevin, just keep doing the work. Trust it.
Oh, I
Kevin,
love
just
that.
keep doing the work. Trust.
Love
He
that.
was a beautiful, beautiful man. He was an amazing man.
He
So
gave
I
you
get to,
he gave you permission to fail.
we call it trust the
That's the
process.
process. Yep.
Trust the process, whichever you want to use. So long story
Yeah.
short, 5 months in, I hadn't closed a damn thing. Maybe closed $1,000. In 1 week, I closed 2 or 3 months of quota in 1 week because I had done the work, and then finally it came together, and then away we went. And then I burnt myself out. That's a whole other story. But he was amazing to get me just to trust that. I've said to my kids, most things in life aren't rocket science. If you show up and you do the work,
Yep.
you will be successful and you will likely be in the top 5% of everybody in the company quickly because most people don't do enough of the right work and they can't be counted on. But it's not. 30 years in, this game of business is so simple to me.
Mm,
So simple. Like,
mhm.
so to scale a company, like it's kindergarten simple. It's hard work, but it's so, because I've seen it hundreds of times, different countries, different dynamics, different industries, different markets. And usually, so in the four forces of growth, we talk about what are the three big moves. You got three big moves you got to be obsessed with for the next 3 to 5 years. And then what are the things that move the needle on those three big moves? Do that work. Align your team to do that work. Shockingly, you'll be successful. And other people get diluted and do all kinds of stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah. And
Anyway,
it
yes.
and, and in the end, what it boils down to is this: the people that you're leading, give them the things that they can control and speak to the things that they can control.
Yes.
Because if they put the effort in and like you said, they get that number of meetings or whatever the input is, as you suggested, is they can control that. And this is where people get burnt out, is when you're constantly talking at them about the things they can't control, market conditions, the economy is in the tank, whatever it
When the
is.
customer signs the deals.
Yeah.
So one of the CEOs that we interview CEOs, and this one guy, Ajit Prabhu, he built this company, Quest Global. It was an engineering firm. They got
Mm,
22,000 employees now, over $1 billion in revenue. Like, they
wow.
really scaled it. Yeah, and they're growing like crazy. I was spending some time with him and his team recently, and their number one metric they pay attention to, number one, number of solutions presented to the customer. Because they're an engineering firm, they do solutions. So that's the work. The work is to present solutions. It'll take care of itself if you have good solutions. And by the way, if I present 100 solutions and get no contracts, you probably have a Kevin problem. But that is how they have grown this company. And we have other companies that have similar. It's about doing the work, and usually doing the work that benefits the customer and staying focused on that, which is all growth quadrant stuff in my model. So it's really simple. And obviously it's easy to talk about, it's hard to do. But it's not rocket science. But people are unfair when they beat them over the head when they don't hit the target, when they should
Yeah.
be talking about number of first meetings, quality of the meeting. Let's review the proposal and let me sit on a sales call with you. And then that person's going to win. And then
Yeah.
and inadvertently we blame the salespeople for not hitting their targets, but really we didn't lead them properly.
Wow. I'm putting that on a billboard in the EOR office. It's you've helped me explain what my messaging is, and I appreciate that, Kevin, because this is why I wanted to have you on the show as much as I want to talk about your books. And I espouse no, but I
You're getting
espouse.
some free coaching.
But I mean, your oxygen mask first. The book was basically single-handedly a lot of my messaging in those first two presidents roundtables that I ran, because leaders needed to take care of themselves to be able to take care of others,
Yes.
is the simple messaging.
Yeah.
And what you've done today is, and together what we've expressed to leaders out there, people who are listening in the audience, is this isn't rocket science. But they feel like if it isn't rocket science, I must not be doing very well, or I'm not doing it
Exactly.
right.
No, it should seem like when we have our best strategic plans, you got to check your ego at the door because they're so simple, it's almost insulting. Any good consultant would not feel good about it because it's so simple. It
Right.
doesn't show your cognitive prowess. That's even like it, but it is simple. Like our companies that we scale the heck out of, the plans are so simple, but then we execute. They're good, they're right, they will drive growth. And then we execute the hell out of them relentlessly and keep building the team. And if people don't produce, we get other people, like a professional team. That's what the other book talks about, part of the book, chapter called The Problem of Pond Hockey. And it's basically the metaphor of hockey in the prairies, as you know.
Yeah.
Whoever shows up gets to play, right? And
Yeah.
that doesn't work in the real world. But some people are trying to work with what they got. We got to think more like a CFL or an NFL team, and you earn your spot. And then if not, the next person takes your spot in the game. And that's the way that we need to think about people in order. Unfortunately, we got to be loyal to production and results, or doing the work, to use your language. And a lot of people have what I call like the loyalty liability. They're loyal to the people that have been there for a long time. That
Mm.
doesn't work. It doesn't work for growth. But yeah, it's not. It's simple and it's hard, and I empathize with people that are struggling with it. But it's the few things that we need to do are not rocket science, and people and that's what drives me crazy makes me angry when I see the plans that some people build. It's like, you couldn't execute this to save your life. It's so complex, which shows the person doing it doesn't understand what they're doing.
Yeah. I remember when I first started at the consulting firm that I was at, some of the strategic plans that were developed by past consulting managers, and they were man, encyclopedia thick. And I remember meeting with the first few clients just to get my feet wet, and a lot of them were like, "Oh yeah, it's here in my bottom drawer because I don't understand it."
Yep.
And so simple is as much as you may not think you're working hard enough, simple is better, and you've expressed that
Yes.
today. And
Yes.
getting back to the producers and so forth, I would much rather have a team loaded with 3-star grinders than 5-star prima donnas who are just sitting on their laurels and they can just kind of show up and make things
No,
happen, because that doesn't last very long and they get
doesn't
bored.
work.
It doesn't
The
work.
best the best sales people and the best sales leaders, just on that piece,
Yep.
have the most meetings. Full stop.
Yep.
They have the most meetings. The best sales leaders I know are in the most meetings.
Yep.
They're not playing office. They're connected to the customer and they're in the market.
Yep.
But yes, I've often thought, I don't know, like I'm not dumb, but I don't know if I'm the smartest person, but I sure as heck know what I do because I've worked hard at it for more than 30 years. And I look at a bunch of the clients that we work with. All of them appear to be incredibly intelligent today. I don't know what their IQ is. I don't know. We have some that are Mensa smart, but most of them aren't. But they've worked so hard and they've gotten good because they worked hard and had learning cycles, thousands and thousands of learning cycles. And I'm with you. I'll take a hardworking person. I'll take a hardworking person rough around the edges any day than someone thinks they got it all figured out.
Bottom line. Let's finish with a lightning round, Kevin. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So let's go back to when you first authored this book, Your Oxygen Mask First. But I want to talk about 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when you first started out and you were working with CEOs. What were maybe some of the books or things that influenced you then that were really heavily influential that you
Yep.
still has the same message today?
How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Good to Great by Jim Collins. A book called The Laws of Attraction by the founder of modern coaching, Thomas Leonard, probably one of the most brilliant men that ever lived. Those were core ones back then.
The hitters. Those are big ones. Any book today that's really hit you in the last year or two besides your own?
Yeah, my own don't hit me. I hate them by the time I'm done. This one, I just spent 4 days with this guy and his wife, Dick Schwartz, and it's called This Is You Are the One. It's a book. He's a master psychologist, and he's got another one that's about internal family systems, saying no bad parts. Game-changing psychologist for understanding yourself and improving your relationships like nothing I've ever seen. Like game-changing stuff.
On that, because you mentioned that that book is not about business necessarily,
No,
but I just realized that my philosophy and business philosophies in general apply to parents, apply to teachers in a classroom,
it's all the
apply
same.
to
It's the
coaches
same.
with athletes. It's all the
Yeah,
same
all the same.
ideas. You're just
Yep.
changing a few of the
The
words,
context. Yep.
the context. And that's what good leadership is.
I could list off 50, but recently those ones.
Well, Kevin Lawrence, I've had a lot of fun today, number one. Two, learned a lot. And I want to thank you for showing up here. I appreciate you taking the time out to be on the EOR podcast. You have a body of work that leaders aren't just reading, they're actually using. And it's like you said, it's simple. So I really want to promote your books. And I realize that Your Oxygen Mask First is nearly 10 years old, but it still applies today. It's probably going to
Mhm.
apply 30 years from now. For everyone listening, whether you've struggled with burnout or you felt like you're winning at everything except your own life, Kevin's work is one of those rare maps that really just points both inward and forward. Kevin, talk about where people can find you. Let's promote what you're doing today, and
Yeah.
let's get the word out there.
Yeah, well, we can get the books on Amazon, and we have tons of free resources and case studies and stuff on our website, which is Lawrence and Co. LawrenceAndCO.com. You can find us there, and if you need help resetting your strategy or getting your team performing at a higher level, that's kind of what we do. And I love speaking about this stuff. Like I want to share this in other podcasts. I want to get this book in front of 100,000 CEOs. I didn't get that far with the auction mass first. I want to get this one because this one makes the game so much easier. It simplifies it a lot. So if there's someone who wants to hear it, I can share it with them. I'm happy to, whether it's in person speaking or, a podcast and sharing it. I love to help people, and it's fun.
Well, I wish you all the success. I
Mhm,
appreciate you being on the show because I truly believe in the message that you're bringing, and I
mhm.
want everybody to know out there that the effort over results philosophy really matches well with what Kevin is
Oh, yeah.
bringing.
Thank you. You're like the most prepared person I've been on a podcast with that I can
Uh,
remember. You know the stuff, you're prepared, you got great questions. I really want to acknowledge that. So thank you. Made it
Thank you
easy for
very
me.
much. Thank you very much for that. That's awesome. Everybody out there, effort over results every time. Thank you, Kevin. Everybody have a great
Thank
day.
you.